do this first or that?
Just, you know, ¿qué quieres? ¿Y qué horas son?
Good evening, and welcome to Ysleta Independent School District's meeting of the Boards of Trustees. We appreciate that you have taken the time to join us at this time. At this time, we ask that you please turn off, oops, that's me too, silence all your electronic devices. This meeting of the Board of Trustees is called to order at 6:02 p.m. We have a quorum with Charlie Bustillos, Richard Couder, Connie Woodruff, Catherine Lucero, and myself, Cruz Ochoa. Soltero Ramirez and Mike Rosales were not able to attend. Secretary Lucero, would you please lead us into the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Discussion and action on opposing the proposed Medcare medical waste facilities within the boundaries of the YSD political subdivision is our action item. Using your electronic hand, is there any discussion? Ms. Lucero.
Thank you, President. We have Representative Blanco, Cesar Blanco, who is going to speak on this item, as well as a community representative. If you all can please come up to say a few words.
That's my screen. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent, and guests. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come today to talk a little bit about an issue that we're dealing with in our district that affects schools, neighborhoods, churches, and cultural historical places in our community. And that is to speak of the status of the Medcare medical waste facility that is being registered and has been approved by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Last October, at my request, the TCEQ held a public meeting in El Paso to hear firsthand the concerns of our communities. We did that in coordination with County Commissioner Vince Perez's office, City Representative Claudia Ordaz, as well as our school trustee Lucero and others, to hear the community concerns so the TCEQ can hear firsthand the concerns over this facility. The TCEQ executive director approved the application in January of this year, after which our community mobilized in opposition to the decision. In total, TCEQ received 11 motions to overturn the decision from members of the community, including myself and many other elected officials. And in May, the commissioners decided to overturn the executive commissioner's decision to approve the registration. It was a great win for our community. We thought that was a step in the right direction, but quickly realized that the fight was not over. The executive director, unfortunately, of TCEQ recently decided to uphold his determination that Medcare application to open the medical waste facility in El Paso conforms with the applicable rules and statutes, and the registration was approved June 18th. Our community still has another opportunity to continue to oppose this decision by submitting motions to overturn. My office is doing that in coordination with City Representative Ordaz, Trustee Lucero, Commissioner Perez, and many other electeds and community leaders. The deadline to submit these motions is July 15th. We're going to continue to advocate against putting this waste facility in our community. And I'm currently coordinating with these offices for that motion to overturn I want to thank them for their advocacy. I want to thank for all the community members that have participated. We had a hearing in a school in Ysleta District, so we appreciate the YISD to help host that facility, among others. And we're also coordinating with the Office of Public Interest Counsel within TCEQ, who recommended the motions to overturn focus on the incompatible land use, where the waste facility was to be located in an area that's, as mentioned previously, around neighborhoods, churches, residence schools, parks. This was the primary reason the commissioners originally voted to remand the application. So we're asking them to consider this next motion to overturn. They sent the application back to staff to study the land use compatibility. And although the executive director recently determined that the proposed facility is compatible with the surrounding area, we're hopeful that the commissioners at TCEQ will once again overturn the executive director's decision. My request from you all today is to support us in that initiative. There's two ways that you can do that. You can file a motion to overturn, and I think Trustee Lucero has been focusing on that effort. There's also judicial review where you can file in the court of law an opportunity for folks to sue the state. So we're looking at those options as well. And we're currently, as a delegation, the state delegation is putting together a letter of opposition. We're still in draft mode and passing around to the offices, but we're going to get that as soon as right before the deadline hits. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I'll take any questions if you have any.
Thank you for coming here and explaining this for us. I know you're very busy, and it really means a lot to us that you took the time for this.
Thank you.
I hear all of the words. I'm just wondering, what do you think our chances are of this making any difference in this? You know, because I know I attend many of the neighborhood association meetings, and we've been fighting this a long time with them.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering what our chances are of actually getting this overturned.
Well, our hope is that the commission decides to review it again and overturn the executive director's decision. How the process works is that they can have another hearing to review it, or they cannot have it and it expire after 45 days. Once it expires, it falls on the decision of the executive director, which will stand. The other recourse is that they hear it and they agree once again with the community and say no and reject the application. The second piece is through the court system, which is obviously it's costly and it takes a lot longer. So we're gonna try to take both routes, just in terms of belt and suspenders approach, so to speak. But we're hopeful, but we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blanco.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Ms. Lucero, you have.
I think Mr. Betia also would like to speak.
Good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Superintendent, and trustees. I'm here on behalf of County Commissioner Vince Bettis, who sends his regrets for not being able to make it here this evening, as he had a prearranged event that he was attending out of town. Before I continue my comments, just to directly answer one of the questions that was posed in the last hearing, in which we were successful in getting it overturned. One of the questions that was asked was why there wasn't any formal action from any of the bodies in the political subdivisions affected in the area. So we feel like that's one of the reasons why it's important for any of the elected bodies to take formal action, because it was specifically addressed and asked during the last hearing. So I hope that answers your question. The County of El Paso has taken formal action to pursue legal remedies to stop the opening of the Medcare medical waste facility within your political subdivision. They've also taken a formal resolution in opposition to the opening of the facility, which was to your point earlier. As many of you guys know, and if you're not aware, This is a facility that would reside basically halfway between Presa and Lancaster. Um, i- in some instances, just feet from residences. And it's a facility that would be a regional processing facility. So it would be not just processing medical waste from El Paso, but from the entire region. And when we asked what their definition of medical waste was, that include bodily fluids, body parts, and medical equipment used in surgeries and other medical procedures, of which, when they're done processing that material, it's released in the air through vapor, and then there's a sludge-like material that's released into our wastewater system. We feel like that it represents an inherent danger to the community, most particularly students that are in the area. And then additional danger that a lot of folks don't understand is the transport of the medical waste to the facility before it's processed, which would be which would be passing several schools. In addition to being here on behalf of Commissioner Perez, I'm also a resident in the area, who's very concerned about how that may potentially affect the community and the students I see every day outside of Ysleta High School. The last time this issue was heard in front of the TCEQ, they specifically raised the issue about opposition to the facility from any of the local political subdivisions. There was not any formal opposition. There was the letters asking for the motions to overturn, but there was no action taken by Commissioners Court, the City of El Paso, or any of the other political subdivisions, which is something that we're now trying to remedy to make our case stronger the next time that this is heard before. We're also dealing with a much more contracted time period, which is why we appreciate Trustee Lucero, you taking the lead and getting this meeting to happen in such a short period of time. And the reason for having a more broad approach this last time was because we just didn't have enough people testifying there at the day of the hearing, so they didn't hear enough from our community, and it left them with under the impression that there was just small amount of opposition to it. They weren't present to see Del Valle High School's gym or auditorium filled with. I couldn't find a single person there that was in favor of the facility. So we encourage you all to consider not only your motion that you all have, but judicial review as well. Commissioner Perez has initiated that at the county and has asked that if you all would like to sign on to that effort with the County of El Paso. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abate. Ms. Lucero?
Yes, thank you. I want to thank our elected officials, our Georgina Perez and Mr. Blanco, and our community members for being here speaking on behalf of this item. As a school board trustee representing the impacted area, I'm appalled that a state agency tasked with protecting the environment has failed to comply with its own policies and protocols in doing so. In April 2019, the TCEQ commissioners asked the director of TCEQ to complete an analysis of the applicant's information as well as the documentation and processes. On its own application, Medicare listed 266 residents within a 1 mile radius. According to a listing from the Central Appraisal District, there are 5,128 homes and apartment buildings comprising over 6,000 residences within a 1 mile radius filled with families, young children, and elderly. These include 4,265 single-family homes. According to Ysleta ISD enrollment records, 3,330 Ysleta ISD students live within the 1 mile radius of this proposed facility. These actual numbers demonstrate that the proposed facility is entirely incompatible with the area. Also, within 1 mile radius, the Ysleta Mission built 1682 and listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So there's very many concerns. The TCEQ's director failure to recognize these glaring discrepancies in the applicant leads to the conclusion that the director's analysis of compatibility was not reliable. The state agency, TCEQ, makes the process extremely difficult for community stakeholders to be part of the process once it gets to a hearing. The hearings are held in Austin. So all of those folks that we had at the Del Valle meeting last year were in fact unable to attend due to the distance. So they make it hard for our voices to be heard. It's understood that part of what TCEQ, the state agency, needs to do is to impact economic development However, that should not be at the cost of our children and their public health. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lucero. If there's no further discussion, may I have a motion?
I move to approve a resolution of the board objecting to the application by Medcare Environmental Solutions, Inc. to operate a medical waste processing facility at 9119 Billy the Kid Street, El Paso, Texas, and authorizing the board president to file a motion to overturn the registration application, and additionally to object to any zoning appeal within the city of El Paso that would allow such use at this location.
We have a second by Mr. Richard Couder. Please cast your electronic votes. The motion has been approved by 5-0. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.